So I asked Jono for a whole half hour in a plenary because this is the first time we're running a design track at UDS, and I thought it would only be polite to introduce us properly. There are a couple of things I want to cover. One of the most important messages that I'd like everyone to leave with is that we are all responsible for the user experience of Ubuntu. Nothing happens that users don't experience that we all don't influence. Design is collaborative, and taking design through to implementation is something that we all have to do together and take responsibility for. So one of the reasons we have a design track this time is to open up those conversations and make sure that we're all speaking the same language and that we're able to collaborate. Before I talk too much, I would just like to ask the members of the design team to stand up so that people can see you and know who they need to come and talk to. I've clustered them all near the front so you can see them, but there they are. On my right is Ian, my lovely assistant for this presentation, who will be driving the desktop for us. I was talking to my team about how to do this presentation. I said, should we do slides? Shall I talk? I said, no, just talk. So now you're going to see what it's like when I do talk for a whole half an hour. The design team, under my leadership, for lack of a better word, has existed for 1 year, 2 cycles. And this time we decided that as Lucid was finalized, that we should do some usability testing. I did some when I first joined, and I did about 36 participants and found lots of little things wrong, lots of little things that were tripping people up, lots of little things that were stopping people getting the full enjoyment from the Ubuntu desktop. And in chatting to Rick and Mark, we came up with the 100 paper cuts project. We've already run the Maverick paper cuts session this morning, so we've got big plans for the next cycle. But I do think that we should take a moment to celebrate it because it's such an excellent example of the design team working with upstreams and working with the community. We have paper cutters within the community who help with all the triaging, help ping upstreams. And if we compare Karmic to Lucid, in Karmic we had 76 paper cuts fixed that were largely fixed by developers who were then pushing fixes upstream. In this last cycle, the developers in the upstreams were much more open to direct conversations. So a lot more got done, and a lot more got done directly in the projects. The 100 paper cuts project is not just about making Ubuntu easier to use. It's about making apps easier to use wherever they may be installed. And it's given us an opportunity to have a common language. One of the people on my team who's not here at the moment, Alejandra, she was describing some of the conversations we sometimes have. She goes, Ivanka, it's like you stand there going, tomato, 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 and the people you're talking to go, cabbage. Like, no, tomato. Lettuce? No, tomato, round thing, it's red, it's tasty. There is so much language that we need to learn in order to work together. And words can be very powerful. I did warn Ante that I might start talking to him in Croatian. Da vidim kako je danas, jesi dobro doputovao. As soon as you start speaking a different language and you're not using the same words as other people, it's so easy to create miscommunications. So one of the main purposes of the sessions that we've scheduled during UDS is about talking about how we set up processes, how we set up language so that we could work together more effectively. We've got a session scheduled about usability testing itself, what we mean by it, how we run a session, how we'd like to discuss findings. In the last cycle, Charlene on my team, she runs our user research program, did some usability testing just on empathy. And we created a very traditional usability report and then basically studied the developers and how they read the report and what they took away from it as actions. Because we talk within the Ubuntu community, we talk in terms of bugs. And a bug isn't just when software doesn't run or you get an error message. A bug is, by my definition, when somebody can't do what they intended to do with the software. And we also find that when you're trying to put something in Launchpad and describe it as a bug and describe it as something that's actionable by a developer, you're missing a higher level of user experience that's not it's very hard to represent it in that bug language. Many bugs will be attributed to one mismatch of mental model. All that being said, I did think it was worth pausing for a moment and going through some of the findings of the research that we ran. We had 11 participants for 1 hour qualitative sessions in Millbank in our office. The participants are recruited according to behavior, not according to whether they use Ubuntu already. Though we've got very good at, in our screeners, making sure that we at least have 2 or 3 people that have at least used a flavor of Linux, if not Ubuntu. So we're quite good at getting those early adopters that Mark mentioned earlier, but we're trying to start looking at how those people at the other side of the chasm are experiencing Ubuntu. And there's some great news for Lucid. People described it as a premium product. When they were asked, talking about, oh yes, this is a premium product. Well, how much would you expect to pay for it? £200 to £400, said one participant, though he reckoned there was no way he was going to give up more than 200 quid for it. It's too much to pay for software. And then we had a student, she thought £60 was a good number, so talking relative terms here. But what's interesting, and what I think is very easy to forget when we're talking amongst ourselves, is how peculiar the concept of free software really is to somebody who spent their whole life being taught there's no such thing as a free lunch. They sit there going, free, this, free, this, really, free? They're like, well, yes. Well, what's the catch? Am I going to install it and then be bombarded with advertising? Are you going to let me use it for a bit and then slam me with a upgrade invitation for £200 to £400, which sounds a bit dangerous? And people, there is an element there's a lack of understanding of free as in speech that people have. So I think it's something that we don't necessarily need to action, we don't necessarily need to make it the focus of our attention, but I think we should be conscious of what it's like as we try and increase the usage of Ubuntu and the adoption of it. The way we set up the sessions, where we give people a USB stick with some music and some photos and some documents and PDFs and some movies and things, and they say, right, imagine your computer's died and you've got this USB stick, these are all your files, this is your lifeline to your old computer. We do not tell them that they're about to use Ubuntu, we do not tell them what it is, and we just go, right, should we switch on this PC and see what happens? So they switch it on, the boot flashes past in a blink of an eye, and we let them use it. And largely, as I said, the response is very positive, but we're presenting people with this. They switch on the computer for the first time, where do you go? Good news is, applications seem very self-explanatory. The fact that we say in the applications menu we have things like Firefox web browser. If by any chance people haven't heard of Firefox, they certainly know what a web browser is. And Firefox does us a huge amount of favors, really, because it is an example of an open source project, an open source brand that people do use. So when we then go on to talk to them about what open source means, Firefox is an explanation. I see, okay. So using it, getting on the internet, and one of the things that is completely evident is with all these participants is that until they can get to their websites, for their websites read Facebook, the computer's not working. Facebook is the internet now for many people. It is also photos for many people. And when we look at the photo experience in Ubuntu, is actually, Rick has been talking about making a sort of simple photos instead of simple scan, which is what was pushed in the last cycle. But taking that end-to-end experience from getting your photo files from your USB stick, from your camera to Facebook is the full journey, or at least online somewhere. For the participants we had, it really was to Facebook. They want to show off. They want to be able to remove red eye and crop out the incriminating evidence. There is absolutely no understanding from the vast majority of people about size of file and whether one file would be better than another. One file size would be better than another, but they certainly want to crop out the dodgy bits, and they want to remove red-eye. And the good news for us when it comes to photos is that very, very few people install the proprietary software that comes with their camera. You know, it's rubbish. They rely on the system to deal with the photos. When it comes to music, it's slightly different. People do want to know that their MP3 player of choice will be supported. And we provide quite an interesting experience when it comes to double-clicking on an MP4 and then taking that through to music playing. I think part of the journey includes dealing with the word restricted, agreeing to install GStreamer bad, which doesn't sound particularly inviting, and then when you ask them to install GStreamer ugly, it all gets a bit difficult. Every single word that we put up in front of people is part of that tomato cabbage conversation. We want them to understand we want them to understand enough to be completing their tasks. We don't necessarily need them to understand everything that's going on, but we don't want to hinder their progress. We want to make sure we're using nomenclature, that we're using language in a way that's helpful rather than hindering. The other things that we've had people looking at as well is the software center, which my lovely assistant will now open. The software center gets a very positive response because it promises simplicity. There is no confusion here. They've got categories of applications that make sense. Interestingly, very few people clicked on featured applications. I think people have a task in mind, and it's the categories is where they start looking. One of the things we did think about, and we've got a session scheduled, I think George and I moved it to tomorrow, about the first use of Ubuntu. And we're wondering if there's a way of tying the software center into that. First use experiences, it's very easy to make them lame. You can put up a video, nobody really wants to watch it, you can do a wizard, who wants to engage with it. But perhaps something as simple as, here's some top 5 apps you need to install through the software center to get a more, the more full experience of Ubuntu. While the software center promises simplicity, and indeed provides it in terms of the install experience, we've got some work to do in how we describe the apps. When we're putting some of our apps into the software center, we just sort of put a little description in, and we're not really thinking about trying to tell people what we would like them to use the app for. We also have this interesting situation where people currently, their mental model of installing software is to go to Google for something, and up comes an app, and they click on it, and it downloads, and they install it. But we're trying to get them to go somewhere completely different. And if they do search on the internet, you get choice. Like if you're trying to install Flash, I think you get 4 different options. There's a deb, there's a Ubuntu 8.04. What's this 10 we had in the testing as well? What's the difference between Ubuntu, Lucid, 10.04, GNOME? What are all these different things? What is very few people just clicking around about an hour. We get to the end and we go, so what's this thing called you've been using for the last hour? And if I go to, is it system? It doesn't really help at the moment because what's GNOME, what's Ubuntu, what's the relationship between the two? For people to understand, they can't go tell stories. They can't go away from the session and tell their friends they use this shiny new premium product unless they know what it's called. So the software center is promising simplicity, but we have some way to go. Apart from the 100 paper cuts project, another effective community engagement that we've had as a design team has been the wallpaper competition. I know in the first cycle we ran it, we had some community judges, but 2 or 3 of us on the design team were also part of the panel. But in the second cycle, we let the winners from the first cycle select the winners for for Lucid. And I think there have been a few complaints that there were too many flowers. don't think there's anything wrong with flowers. You know, it's spring. Why not have some flowers? They're pretty. But you know, the wonderful thing about it is that you can go off and choose some others if you want to. Well done, Ian. Very nice. So there's some very good news when it comes to where we are, but there's also a lot more work to do. What were the other topics I was going to talk about? The paper cuts was one thing that actually, I will mention that because it's here. One of the things that does happen on first use is people see this shiny button as compared to the Ubuntu logo, and they go here first and nothing happens, and then they start looking at the top. It's not a showstopper, but it's something that we need to think about. The paper cuts thing I wanted to mention was things like in this second cycle, we identified 2 or 3 that we thought were very good. Because the paper cuts has now become a project that upstreams collaborate with each other on. So in this last release, we had empathy and Gwibber using the same theme, or very similar themes, so that people had a similar experience across the different applications. Because we really need to start thinking about and looking at consistency in the desktop and helping people learn and build on their experiences of use. I mentioned earlier installing chat is a bit of a troublesome journey for those people who don't know that they need to go into the Software Center and do restricted, whatever it is that you search for, I can't remember. But we had one of our participants who's particularly, I liked him. He was studying physics at Imperial College in London, and he is somebody who's fiddled with lots of different operating systems. But you know, he's one of these people that sets up his Facebook in Japanese because, you know, obviously in your final year of physics, you've got plenty of spare brain cycles to be learning Japanese in your spare time. I mean, even he, you know, even somebody who is technically very able, who is very competent, he wants simple things to be simple. You know, we don't necessarily, I think Mark mentioned earlier, the difference of people who want to treat errors as puzzles and people who just want to listen to some music or watch a film or learn Japanese. You know, we need to think about those experiences and how we can support them and fill that time. So one of the sessions we are running this week is about usability testing, and then how we repeat those tests in more than one location, and how we talk about merging our results and making sure that we're effectively feeding into the development and design of Ubuntu as it stands. So if anyone likes running usability sessions, would like to learn how to run them, or already has experience of running them, then please come along to session Charlene's running. We also talked about language, talked about the fact that we're all responsible for the user experience. And we were talking this morning in our 100 paper cut session about the fact that we need to communicate better. We had questions in our round table about where people find information from us as a design team. And we've recently launched design.canonical.com, which is the first place to look for us. If you can't find us here and get some time with us, that's one place we talk about what we're doing. And we're going to try and build on that site and make it, you know, create a central point where we can put up things that have been agreed and decided, and things that are up for conversation. We all hang out on the IATANA mailing list and in the IATANA IRC channel. There was a conversation about whether paper cuts should have its own channel, but we decided that would just create confusion. If anyone has ever tried to communicate with me, you might have noticed that I don't read my email very well or very much. But if I'm ever Ivanka train in IRC, that's probably a good time to chat to me, because I'm commuting to and from work for an hour. I'm usually quite chatty then. But then there's always the risk that the signal's going to drop out. So luckily, though, 3G in Ubuntu works very well, and it copes remarkably well with the dropping in and out of signal. My mobile phone can't cope, but they're the same provider, but my laptop generally stays quite connected. I can't look at pictures, which is a bit unfortunate. We had some great feedback on some of the indicator work. For example, the me menu. people there's a session, I think, after this one, I don't know where David Barth is, where we need to look at what we're going to do next. But one of the good things about this indicator is it provides great discoverability for people for chat particularly, though broadcast is a little bit confusing as a word. I don't know if you've got it set up. Mm-hmm. If you click on it, one of the things that, if you go to add, so at the moment we have Flickr, for example. It's a simple little thing, but Flickr is the first option, and people don't think of Flickr as a broadcast channel, so it doesn't really explain. But when they see Twitter, they're okay. So that's heading in the right direction. Some more work to be done then. Software Center heading in the right direction. We need to think. I'd like us to start thinking more about those end-to-end experiences. So not just fixing a paper cut in F-Spot, but fixing the steps along the route of taking your photos from your camera to the internet, of taking your MP3 player, charging it up. I've got a few minutes left, so I'm going to tell a bit of a personal anecdote. I, of course, have gone round my family and installed Ubuntu on all their machines. My mother obviously uses it daily because, she's my mum and she does as she's told and she's very supportive. But my brother secretly took his laptop off and got Windows reinstalled on it. He actually paid somebody to put Windows back on his laptop because he plugged in his new iPod to charge and he was training for a marathon. He got to the gym, switched it on, and it said, "Please reformat this iPod on proprietary software," or whatever the message is. And so, I had to take the guilt of being personally responsible for upsetting his training schedule and ruining his run in the gym. It's a personal anecdote, but it does show how much how much influence we have. We're giving people a tool that they want to use to complete their goals. And we need to think about what they're trying to do versus how much we enjoy fixing and changing things and customizing things and tweaking them so they're just so. We couldn't use my laptop for the presentation because I'd messed it up a bit too much. But thankfully Ian keeps things nice and true to source. There's 5 minutes left. Has anyone got any questions? NPT.
A question from Twitter.
Oh, go on.
Antonio Roberts would like to know, do we get to see the results or a summary of the user testing?
Yes, they'll be in the session, which I don't know when it is, and then we'll publish them on design.canonical.com.
And a question from Jonathan Carter on Identica. How do you square people knowing what a web browser was in our user testing compared with Google's testing where people didn't know what a web browser was?
That's an excellent question. I think in the context, it is a very good question. I think that people don't think in terms of... See, we're giving them more contextual information here. They're in a desktop environment, and I'm only guessing, because I don't have proper results for this, but there's context here. They're in a desktop environment, they've gone to applications, it says internet, and then it says Firefox web browser. So I think the context is what helps people unpick what the meaning is. But without the data, I can't say, but context is massively important when it comes to unpicking nomenclature. Going back to the tomatoes, I think it's easier to be talking about tomatoes when you're making a salad than necessarily digging the road. Any other questions? Brilliant. I'm glad I explained that so well. Thank you very much.
Yeah, hello.
What? It is, kind of. Ugh. Oh. What's F5, right? Sorry, I've only been doing this 2 years.
So, yeah, I'll have to ask you to...
Let's just roll with it.
Okay, so hello. I only have 15 minutes, so let's do this quickly. I'm Thiago Macieira, product manager. That means I'm part of the overhead at Nokia. I still do some development though. As you can see from things I've been doing, I actually was a developer before, during part of the networking and I/O part of Qt. Now I'm PM for that area. That means I try to understand what you guys ask and try to understand what people are asking for and then tell them that they can't have it. No, sorry, that we're going to work on it. I like to give opinions on everything related to Qt. So if you mail me, I'll probably have some strong opinions on things. And I was release manager as well. That's a very interesting job. I don't know if the release managers for Ubuntu do lots of the work that we do as well. But it's a very painful job, but we're very rewarding when you get the product out of the door. And I'm really glad that Ubuntu is doing the release work that you're doing. It's very comforting to see Linux taken to those levels. And I've also been liaison to the KDE community, so I know lots of the KDE folks that are here doing Ubuntu as well. So I'm here to talk about what Qt is bringing. So the first thing I wanted to show you is Qt is more than just Qt itself. We have now the libraries, the things that's called Qt itself is the modular library I have here. Full of functionality, the core, GUI, graphics, OpenGL, networking, and SQL, and everything else. But we also have a couple of things on top of that. Unfortunately, the projector isn't doing very well here. But what we have a couple of solutions on top of Qt. And this is the interesting thing that what we're building right now. We're trying to get Qt to be more modular than it is. Right now, it's one big package. And the packager usually feels the pain of it, not only on Ubuntu, but also on other distributions. Sometimes they come and tell me, why did you do that? Why is it so complicated? The build takes long, and trying to rebuild the whole distribution gets stalled at this one choke point, which is very long to build. And we're trying to somehow help there by modularizing a bit, and by creating projects on top of Qt. One of them that I put here on the middle one, the mobility one, it's what we're trying to address some of the missing areas, some of the missing functionality, trying to address the mobile-inspired APIs, mobile-inspired domain. I'm going to go into details of what it means, but it's a cross-platform. It works on the desktop as well, and since we actually have laptops going smaller to netbooks and then to tablets and then to even smaller things. I have here a smartphone which is running Linux, and you suddenly get into this continuum where the APIs are useful. We have other things coming up. Some of them are very early research, some of them are already public. You can find them on our repository. And we have the tooling side, which is mainly Creator, but a couple of other things. So I remember Mark giving a speech in one of the academies a couple of years ago saying how important it was to have time-based releases 6 months. We're trying to get there, actually. And I put there 6 months with a star, saying roughly. We're going to do our first 6-month release this time around, but we're going to fail again next time. And OpenOffice screwed up layout again, unfortunately. But here's what we do. We follow these scope milestones in our development. And just to give you an idea, any point there, you're allowed to contribute. You can come in and help at any point there. We try to figure out early in the beginning on the scope, saying, what do we want to do with this release? Is this something we want to improve performance on? Is this something we want to improve our graphics stack on? Then we do some of the planning, some of the research, some of the scheduling data. And then comes the long part between alpha when feature freezes and we try to stabilize and harden everything. It's a lot of work. Your QA team has to be congratulated because they do the same thing that we do. It's very hard work. And then we launch, and it's not over. There's a lot of maintenance going after it, going to figure out what bugs were reported, how they mean, what the issue is, fixing them, and doing that without causing more regressions, without causing more issues to people. So here's where we are. 4.6 was released December last year. And you can't see the number here. It's week 23. There's a 3 in white there. We're going to release in the 6-month cycle for the first time Qt 4.7. We're trying to get there. This date might shift a bit. And then for 4.8, we're going to mix again. I'll get to the reason why later. But here's the interesting thing for 4.7. I was asked here to tell you what a roadmap is, what we're going to try and do. The interesting things for 4.7 are mainly what we call Qt Quick technology. It's our new quick way of developing rapid applications with fluid motion, with touch interfaces, and all of that you're seeing in mobile phones today. This is where it was driving, where we were driving our 4.7 release. We have a couple of other technologies coming in from the mobility side, especially barrel management, meaning applications control and find out if they're connected to the internet, if the connection has changed, if you switched from 3G to Wi-Fi and from Wi-Fi to another Wi-Fi, and therefore you should restart your connections. This kind of information is very useful to applications. It's even possible to turn on the networking, but depending on the system, you might not want to give the application that possibility. But again, this is reflected in the API. Another thing we've been quite focused on for this release was quality improvements in our CI system, trying to improve our predictability. This is why we're finally managing to do a 6-month release cycle in order to guarantee our API stability and least number of regressions. So the talk before was just talking about how she broke her laptop and couldn't do the presentation on her own. I myself run the latest version of Qt on my own laptop, and I often find these kinds of issues. And for the first time now, I'm running 4.7 and I see almost no issues. I've just upgraded the version, and it's very interesting to see how there are very few regressions this time around. And the few that are there, we can easily fix. Another thing we've been focused on, and we're continuing to focus, is performance. It's something that we are establishing benchmarks for, establishing the rule that any changes going in must perform well, must not introduce performance regressions. And we're improving WebKit. So for 4.8, here are the interesting things we're looking at. I selected the list of things that are interesting to you here, I think. Again, quick improvements, Qt quick improvements. We're trying to work on a widget set so that you can use quick and have the same look and feel, the native look and feel in different platforms as much as needed. We're hoping to get lots of feedback going forward and then work on that feedback to improve it. And we have a couple of backlog items we couldn't do in time, including multi-touch. Touch is supported, multi-touch is not. Multi-touch on X11, I heard a couple of people discussing it here already, and it's an interesting subject for us. It's something we're very keen on supporting. The roadblock there is standardization on X11 itself, not in the toolkit side. Apparently, the kernel side is also good. There's one middleman that has not standardized yet, and that's X11. We want to work with the X community and other interested parties to improve this. We're working on some enablers for 3D, OpenCL, and other kinds of improvements and technologies coming up. And I also mentioned Project Lighthouse here because it's something that might be interesting. It's running Qt without X again, but with hardware acceleration. There's a session on it later. Non-functional targets, I'm not going to read this through. We want to improve the way we contribute, we receive contributions, the way we handle the maintainership of Qt itself. We want to open up the model even more than so we are already. We want to work on our modularization, as I said before, to have smaller packages, and this includes WebKit itself. performance, stability, and things we want to continue working on. This is going to be our main target for 4.8, especially the modularization and governance. This is why we might miss the 6-month release cycle this time around, because this is really important to us. We want to nail down this before getting the next release out. What we're also doing in Creator, we have Creator is the heart of Nokia Qt SDK. So it's something that Nokia itself is using for its own device for application development for its devices. So it's getting a lot of attention. It's getting a lot of love from the company, including simulator support and deployment support. And also the Qt Quick Designer. This is something we're working on. We've been talking to a lot of designers and usability testers to find out how to improve it, how to make it so that designers can use it and use the same tool that developers use. This is very important to us as well. And a couple of other things going around. Like I said, WebKit is a separate release. It's a big module, and it requires releases more frequent because of the changing in web technologies. We need to release this more often than Qt itself. And also, like I said, the SDK, packaging Creator. And the interesting thing is mobility. We have APIs coming. I have a list there of what we have already worked on. This is what is released today, I think 1.0. And we're also working on 1.1 now. I have a couple of ideas and probably discuss with the people who are interested in it. That was it. I think I've managed to keep my time. I have probably time for no questions, but here's my email.
5 minutes.
I have 5 minutes.
Yep.
Okay, good. So maybe if I have one question or two. Otherwise, there's my email. There's some links there if you want to grab me later and ask me questions.
Is there any relation between the Qt Mobility PIM APIs and the Akonadi APIs?
They've talked a bit to each other, but the APIs are different. They're trying to figure out, it's slightly different. What they're trying to do there is access, especially address book that you have on your device, and the SMS store on your device, and MMS store on your device. So it's more that part of it than trying to provide a framework for the mail application to be built on. It's the other way around. It's when your application needs to talk to the mail reader, not for making the mail reader itself. But infrastructure is there, like MIME support and this kind of things can be shared.
You mentioned multi-touch before.
Yes.
Have you seen, are you talking to the PyMT guys?
Sorry?
PyMT?
PyMT, no. At least not that I know of. I'm not the developer in the subject. What we do have is that we have multi-touch working on X. It requires a couple of patches to X itself. And the big issue there is standardizing on a couple of constants and the way the things work. But it works on top of X input too. We have a branch of Qt working with it, and we have managed to get it working on a couple of devices, even up to 5 fingers. We're standardizing on top of X input 2. So as long as X input 2 works, it shouldn't be a problem for us, and for others as well.
So as a general development question, as the kernel has, sort of said there won't be a 3.0 release, it's mature enough where we can get things in, piece by piece. Is there a framework or a roadmap where Qt is going to do the same thing, or there will be a 5 release at some point?
So the difference between us and the kernel is that the kernel has a lot more freedom in changing the way it works because its API is basically system calls. With us, we're bound to a C++ API, and we would like to eventually break API compatibility and change the APIs. That said, we want to keep most of source compatibility. We have no plans right now for Qt 5. That means if we started tomorrow to do Qt 5, it would take 2 years to release it. So you can be sure that at least 2012 there will be no Qt 5. But eventually it might happen.
Oh, great, thank you. Next up, we have Rick Spencer, who's going to talk about quickly. I mean, something else.
All right.
Did you call that, was that called Qt Quick?
Qt Quick.
Qt Quick? Okay, I'll take the compliment.
So the pronunciation is Qt, not Qt.
Oh, okay. Look at that. Whoopah. So, all right, so, wrong button. Rock. Wow, it's awesome to see all you guys again. I love being back here. So, who's heard of Quickly? Anybody? Has anyone tried it yet? Anybody? Sweet. All right. So, let's just rock. Let's see if we can get through this in like 10 minutes. We can take a quick break. So, Maverick is for application developers. So we want to invite all the crazy people out there who have crazy ideas for little fun apps. We want them to make those, and we want to bring them over to the platform and have a lot of fun writing apps for Ubuntu. Furthermore, we want our users to get those apps and have a lot of fun with those apps. So that's one of our visions for Maverick. But we need to make all these things get in line and sing together. And we've made a lot of good progress, and I think in Maverick we're gonna put the bow around it. So I just want to touch on each of the components here, and really my goal here is to inspire people to attend the session. So please don't leave until you see my last slide, which has the session list. So who's used Desktop Couch here for something? Okay, that's not enough. Desktop Couch is so super cool, and it's so easy to write really neat things with it. So please, look, here's persisting actually pretty interesting data structures with just like 4 lines of code, including instantiating the main object. So if you are a application developer and you're persisting pretty much any data, you should really be looking at Desktop Couch. It's going to be what we recommend as like your first choice for persisting data, Desktop Couch. It's a Python API, and it's also, it gets synced automatically for you. It handles like all the stuff that you would want it to handle. Okay, this is just a little tool that we're putting together called Slipcover that gives you a chance to look into like what's actually in Desktop Couch, written in Quickly. So what's Quickly? Quickly is a set of templates. Quickly is boilerplate code that's generated for you and a set of commands that do really interesting things for you. So you can, using Quickly, type 2 words, and in 90 seconds you'll have your app in your PPA. It's really quite remarkable. I'm sure everyone knows Didrox is the evil genius behind Quickly, or I guess the mad genius. So we have a lot of sessions on Quickly, the Quickly itself, and also the templates. Actually not a lot, a couple sessions. So if you're interested in how these commands work, or if you're interested in the code that we generate, let's say for instance you would like to see a Vala template because you think Vala is a good language to write applications in, you should come to one of our sessions. Who said woo? Was that for Vala? All right, Vala fans, sweet. Okay, Quickly Widgets is a new project that we started to make it fun to build apps together. GDK is really neat, and we really like PyGDK, but it tends to be pretty, like you get a lot of like string and knobs and tape, and to make something you have to put a lot of stuff together. So we started to make bigger chunks. So if you look at the top here, see that see this grid here? Like if anyone ever made a tree view, bound it to a database or anything? Okay, that's just a few lines of code now. So this is one chunk. And what you see below here is this new Google Map widget that we made. So the code for putting both of these elements on the screen, you see I have, well actually, this is actually looking in the Desktop Couch and using the contacts database and getting information out of your contacts database. One of the advantages of using Desktop Couch is all the applications can really easily look in there, and you can write really easy Python code to party on it. So here's the code for it. You see the top chunk, I just make a couch grid. This is one Quickly widget, and then this is another Quickly widget. So just in a few lines of code, you can start to assemble really fun and interesting applications. And wow, all right. Google Map. Okay, so we're going to have a session talking about Quickly widgets. We have some that are coming down the pipe, but we really want to get some great ideas for widgets to put together. And so please come to the sessions, bring your ideas, and this is what I do on my weekends. And I'll write them for you. So next we have this Launchpad layer. And is Martin Owens here? Martin? Yeah, Martin Owens and the infamous ground control project. He's brought really interesting perspective to the desktop of how we can maybe embed some of the functionality of working with Launchpad into the desktop. So now the developer's mental model is not divided between this developing world and this web world. They can put everything together if they choose to. So there's going to be some sessions on ground control. There's some specific ground control sessions that are not scheduled yet, and there's also a general, the desktop is your IDE session, which is scheduled. Then there's the software center. Okay, so let's say you've written this cool application, you've used Quickly, and you've used Quickly widgets to put it together, you've ground control to get in your PPA and got some testing, but then your users will never get it. Right? Like how do they have to find, how do you get users? So like today, if they find your PPA, like here's my PPA, it's actually pretty cool that in 10.04 we've integrated PPAs into the software center. So like if you do find my deb line or my PPA line, you can put it in there. But we're going to do something very, very bold in Maverick. We talked about it at the roundtable session. It's extremely exciting. We're going to set up a system where if you create a new application after Maverick ships, Maverick users will still be able to find it in the software center. So you'll be able to get new applications on the stable release in this. Yeah, all right, thank you. Jeez. All right. This is huge, huh? All right. Last but not least, we're putting all this great stuff together. Like, this is like so much fun, the community getting together. We're making really good choices. We're making things happen. But what we don't yet have is an information architecture for new people that we've invited in. So they're having a little trouble mapping to it. And so we talked to the Ubuntu manual guys this morning at the desktop roundtable session. We'll have a session where we talk about having a website to get people up and running real quick. And we'll even make a PDF manual so you can print it out and read it in the John and learn all about how to do application programming for Ubuntu. So this was all an advertisement for my last slide. So these are the sessions that we have scheduled. The desktop, basically Friday is desktop couch day. Is that not right, Aquarius? Yeah, so there's a lot of cool stuff. The couch team's going to be here. Oh, I forgot to put what day the Quickly enhancements are. Is that on tomorrow or Wednesday, Didier? Tomorrow, okay. So tomorrow morning we're going to talk about Quickly itself. Tomorrow morning we're also going to talk about the Quickly widgets. We call it the PyGDK base class library. What a boring title for such a fun thing. And then the empathy guys are going to be here on Wednesday afternoon. And it's not really going to be a Quickly widget, but what we want to make is a really easy to use wraparound telepathy. So you can take your social applications to like a totally new level by, you know, making maybe a Quickly widget that brings in your empathy contacts, click on it, set up some communication, and just start writing really fun Ubuntu desktop to Ubuntu desktop apps. Thursday, okay. So the Quickly enhancement session's Thursday. There's the desktop is your IDE session tomorrow, and like I said, there's some ground control specific sessions to be scheduled. And then the software center, we have Wednesday at noon, and then we'll be talking about general UI enhancements around the software center. And so that's it. So come and participate. And all right.
have time for one question.